On Sunday, November 18th, the documentary film The Dust Bowl premieres on PBS. It's the latest offering from Florentine Films, Ken Burns, and our guest, Julie Dunphy. Julie, thanks for being with us here in New Mexico. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a fascinating topic. This is an amazing thing because when one thinks about it, you think we know everything there is to know about the Dust Bowl. We learned about it in school. It's been the subject of other documentaries over the years. But when you guys sat down to think about this at Florentine, what grabbed you about it that said to you you could add so much more to the story here?
I think a couple of things grabbed us. My co-producer, Dayton Duncan, he had written a book several years ago called Miles from Nowhere about the least populated counties in the United States. The frontier used to be defined as fewer than 2 people per square mile. And he passed through some of the Dust Bowl counties when he was writing that book. And he made a mental note to say, maybe I should make a film about this. I think there's something here, something to understand. And I think what drew us to it, a couple of things. We think we know about it. You know, we get a couple of paragraphs. Many of us have read The Grapes of Wrath. We think we know about it, but do we really know that it's one of the top 4 or 5 biggest environmental catastrophes in human history? It's certainly the biggest 1 or 2 in North American history. And when you start looking at it that way, you think, wow, do we really know about this? And we were also drawn to it because we realized if we wanted to talk to people who could tell us what it was like to live through it, we were running out of time very quickly. This took place in the 1930s, and Florentine Films had finished a show about the World War II, in which veterans were dying every day. This is 10 years earlier. So there were a number of things, both trying to grasp the magnitude of the environmental catastrophe that took place, but also the human dimension. What had happened to the lives? What had happened to the families who lived here, who had come out to homestead and farm? What was it like for them?
You know, it really struck me watching some of those folks you do feature in the film that it was still so visceral for them even now, at the edge of tears, thinking about siblings that had been lost during that time, parents that had been lost, separation of families where parents had to make a brutal decision to send their children elsewhere to live with other relatives out of state, out of the Panhandle area. Just a very tough thing to do. So when you sat down with some of these folks, what were some of the surprises that were they so open and ready to talk about this? You just kind of caught them at the right time?
You know, I think we did catch people at the right time. Our associate producers, Susan Shoemaker and myself, when we finished making the national parks, we thought maybe we were too late. We really did, and our first move was to say, go down there and see if you can find the folks. Are there people still alive who can tell their stories? Susan and I made 4 separate trips to what we consider the heart of the Dust Bowl and what the federal government at the time considered the heart of the Dust Bowl, which would be what was known as no man's land, the Oklahoma Panhandle, the Texas Panhandle, and where it bumps up against New Mexico, Colorado, and Kansas. And we did, as I said, 4 separate trips, and we put out a call basically to people. We asked local PBS stations to put a little pitch with Ken in it, say, send your stories, send your photos. Susan made a poster that based on the Uncle Sam poster saying, Ken Burns needs you, send your stories. And Susan and I would put the word out to nursing homes, to local historical societies, that we would be in such and such a place, in such a church basement on this day, and please come with your photos, with your stories. And the response was remarkable. People would show up, we'd have what we call roundtable discussions, and of course they would all be talking to each other as well. Yeah. And I think for a lot of these, often their adult children brought them, and I think for a lot of these people, they hadn't told their stories. Oh. They had it was a very, very difficult time, and some people thought people wouldn't believe them. You get on with your life. When something like that has passed, you move on, and daily life takes over. And the adult children would often say to us, I never heard that story. And, I understand a little bit better now.
Wow.
And Ken likes to characterize what we do as emotional archaeology, and I think people were very willing to open up, and once they understood we thought this was very important, that they were happy to share their story. And you know, there were some difficult moments. You talk about people losing siblings, and of course, because we had pre-interviewed people, we often knew the story, and would say as we went to film it, we know this is going to be a difficult moment, but it's a way you can help other people understand what this time was like. You know, we're here to listen to it, and other people, it will help them learn. And so I think that was a way of us kind of getting over those kind of hurdles.
I can appreciate that a lot when you think about in context that it lasted 10 years. Yeah. I think that's a surprise for most people. And you can hear that, but then when you try to live it in your mind, so to speak, 10 solid years of an incredibly difficult day-to-day, hour-to-hour existence. Yes. It had to have been just incredibly exhausting for people at some level.
Well, I think so. You know, Southern Plains people are known as next year people. You know, they understood that there's not always rain here, but you just think, well, okay, it's a bad year. Next year it will be better. So they're next year people. And for year after year, for this to go on, you know, you're battling against hope all the time because you think, okay, well, it'll be better, and then it's not. It actually gets worse. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And then you have the hardships of the Great Depression overlaying the whole thing.
Right, amazing.
So.
You know, I'm interested in the first part of the film when the wonderful narrator, you use Peter Coyote, who's one of our PBS favorites, of course. Is he great? Mentions in Duncan's writing that it is actually one of the biggest man-made disasters on the 40 or 50 years worth of bad decisions, I think the wording was. What were those bad decisions? What happened there that led up to the Dust Bowl? So I think for a lot of us growing up, we just thought it was part of the natural, you know, evolution of the weather that just caused this thing.
Yeah. Well, what happened, you know, there had been some homesteading in this area on the Southern Plains in the 1890s. A drought hit in the 1890s. This is a region that has extreme weather and high winds. And the region cleared out from the little settlement it had in the 1890s. But the Homestead Act was enlarged by the federal government in the beginning years of the 20th century. And these were really the last public lands available to folks. And so, you know, railroads were promoting it, the federal government was promoting it. And for a lot of the people who came to settle the region, whether it was Scots-Irish from the old Confederacy, Latinos who came up, this was the first time in a lot of their family's history where they had an opportunity to own a piece of land. And there was a wet cycle that was taking place during the 1910s and the 1920s. So a bunch of factors came together. You had the government encouraging settlement of the land. You had a wet cycle, which made wheat very prosperous, very easy. It's winter wheat. You put it in the ground, you go through the winter, you have a crop in the spring. That encouraged a lot of what was called suitcase farmers. You know, Hollywood producers come and buy up land. Boom, you had a crop, you could make a lot of money. World War I came along, and Germany cut off access to Russian wheat. So again, government set wheat at $2 a barrel to encourage farmers to help feed the Allies.
Which was a good price at that time.
Oh, it was a terrific price. Yeah. It was a terrific price. So there was this mad rush. You could make a lot of money. There was this mad rush to get this land, 100 million acres, plowed up and put into wheat production. The other factor, another factor that entered into, you all of a sudden had gasoline tractors. You could never have plowed up that number, that many acres. With just a horse and plow, but you had gasoline tractors running all night long. I mean, it was an era when agriculture was becoming industrial. So all this land was plowed up. Even after the war ended and prices dropped, you could still make money at it. You could still, it was, they still had enough moisture during that year, enough precipitation during the 20s. The Depression hit. First, it was just kind of a thing that was happening back east, you know, hit the financial markets. And actually in 1930 and 31, they had a bumper crop on the Southern Plains. But then the drought hit and commodity prices collapsed. There was an agricultural crisis brought on by the Great Depression. And so you had so many factors feeding into this. It's not as if we set out to say, okay, let's ruin this ecosystem. It's not what happened. It's human nature. People wanted to make a life for their families. They had this opportunity. The government was encouraging. There was a wet cycle. There was a war. So all these things came together. And what happened when the drought hit and the commodities market collapsed is a lot of the suitcase farmers just left. They abandoned their fields.
Interesting.
And those fields, which had been held down for thousands of years by native buffalo grass, this was a region that had been inhabited by millions and millions of buffalo. And the buffalo grass went down several feet and held the soil down. It had evolved to adapt to that climate. And so all that grass was plowed up, plowed under, plowed up. And when the periodic winds that you get, especially in the spring, started to blow, and those fields were just left wide open.
Did you, in your mind, are there parallels to today and how we, stewards of the land, we hear people talk about being stewards of the land. We have certainly the science of rotating fields and crops has come a long way. But are we still in somewhat of a similar dilemma? We see an opportunity. Folks want to make a living for themselves. Did you come across a conclusion on that?
Well, it's Ecclesiastes. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, on the one hand, the settlement of the Southern Plains was a classic American boom. Real estate prices went sky high. People were buying up land without even looking at it. The settlement of Boise City was actually one of the few times in American history where people went to jail for real estate fraud. They advertised it as having stately elms and maples, artesian wells. I mean, this is the Panhandle.
Right.
There's no such thing there.
Right. And that was in Kansas?
That was Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, my fault.
Yeah, Boise City, Oklahoma. So it was, it's a classic American real estate boom.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the wheat boom. And we've seen that in the last 10 years.
Sure.
We've had a real estate boom. So I think there are a lot of parallels or a lot of lessons. There's nothing new under the sun, and it's interesting to examine it in light of where we are today.
What did you discover about New Mexico specifically? Was there a different way that we handled it here? Was there a different way of the effects it had on us here versus other places, or basically generally the same as what you found at the other Panhandle?
I think that region, down where the states meet, was pretty much the same experience. I mean, you can cross state lines very easily. It's a little bit like being in some of the smaller states, and I think it felt like more of a region than as opposed to, say, different state responses. In terms of making the film, we had some wonderful resources in New Mexico. When we made the national parks, we put out a nationwide call for people to send in their home movies. Well, we didn't really have that advantage here. It was the 1930s, it was poor region, people, it was the Depression. People didn't have cameras. I mean, they had cameras, they didn't have movie cameras. They weren't taking a lot of home movies. Well, I got a message one day that somebody thought they knew about somebody who had some home movies, and by the time we tracked it down, it took several months. It turns out that the Hertzstein family collection was at the University of New Mexico. And by the time an archivist was able to dig out the original film, these were family home movies. And somebody in that family had a terrific eye and captured some remarkable footage of a dust storm, which actually opens episode 2. I mean, it's just terrific footage.
Wow.
So, we have a couple little gems like that from New Mexico.
Yeah.
And some of our survivors, of course, are from that part of the state and tell their stories on camera for us.
Quite ironically, in a very postmodern technical way of looking at things, it really hit me watching on a large screen, flat screen television, the black blizzard it's almost like it comes out of the television into your living room.
Yeah.
It can be frightening almost, some of this footage that you see in this documentary. It's incredible.
Yeah, and when you hear people describe it, it'd be still as can be. You couldn't even hear the birds, and then all of a sudden, you'd see this thing rolling towards you. Sometimes it was black, sometimes it was red. It kind of depended on where it was coming from, in which state. And then boom, and it would hit, and it would be like, a noise of a freight train, or, the loudest noise you had ever heard, and remarkably frightening. And the phrase we heard over and over again in interviews is, "I thought it was the end of the world."
Wow.
you know. And particularly if the adults told the children it was the end of the world, well, they believed them. You know, why wouldn't you believe Grandma?
Absolutely, absolutely. Congratulations, you've had a dream career, as they say. You know, a lot of wonderful, interesting, groundbreaking, Emmy award-winning projects. And this last one, I think you and your colleagues have done this country a great favor by illuminating something that's, you know, little understood. We know about it, but I guarantee anybody watching this, you'll know a whole lot more afterwards. So.
Oh, thank you. It was a wonderful film to make.
Absolutely.
You know.
The Dust Bowl begins Sunday at 7 o'clock on New Mexico PBS. Julie Dunphy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back next week with a look at the saga of statehood. David Holtby, author of The 47th Star, is in to talk about New Mexico's entry to the Union. I'm Gene Grant. We'll see you then in Focus.
This program is part of American Graduate. Let's make it happen. A public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.